In this episode of Retro Gaming Night we play
Metal Gear.
This is casually hardcore.
Place the game closing.
Game of game features.
Game news.
And casually hardcore.
Press start.
Hi there, I'm Mark,
I'm Neil.
and welcome to another episode of Retro Gaming Night. We're looking at Metal Gear Solid on the Nintendo GameCube. So this is a remake of Metal Gear Solid that came out on the PlayStation 1. Basically, it's updated the graphics of it. So if you remember the PlayStation 1 original, and I'm sure we'll do a video on it at some point, it looks quite bad, but now with the GameCube one, everything is much better. I think Metal Gear Solid 2, basically, it's comparable to that. No idea why this came out on the GameCube. I assume Nintendo must have spent lots of money.
Good idea though. People always talk about remakes. They obviously remade Resident Evil 1, people want to remake Resident Evil 2. Dozens of games have HD reboots, but Metal Gear, that's a good one to remake.
But before we talk about what they've changed in this, just talk about the game basically. So this is a stealth game. You play Solid Snake, who has to go around on a secret mission and stealth his way through the base to save the world. Think typical late 90s action movie, and you've got the general plot right there. It goes a lot crazier than that. That's something for you to explore.
Yeah, Hideo Kojima, I've said this often, he's a brilliant director. Weird writer. The Metal Gear Solid games are kind of spy espionage games about these private military companies and mercenaries and factions and nuclear battle tanks. But there's some weird moments in the Metal Gear games, especially all the bosses. They've all got these very bizarre, almost supernatural personalities to them.
I mean, in the first game, they kind of fit in, I think. They don't stand out too oddly compared to the later games where it just goes over your head.
Yes, it does.
The story is quite grounded in reality in a lot of ways here, apart from a few of the bosses.
Just a few of them.
Yeah. But let's talk about the actual remake itself. So obviously graphics have been improved. The voice acting, all the voices got redone. And before we recorded this, was just talking about Jennifer Hale, who is the voice of one of the characters in the game.
It's still my beating heart, Jennifer Hale.
Well, there was a bit of an issue with this game where they wasn't being paid as much as they wanted to be paid. So David Hayter, who voices Solid Snake, gave up his fee to ensure the other cast got more money. It does mean some of the voice acting doesn't work as well. You can tell that the people playing, like Jennifer Hale, are just not interested. So some of the voices are a bit better in the original PlayStation version because they're really emoting in that. In this one, they kind of sound a bit bored. Other characters like Mei Ling is a Chinese character. She loses her accent in this version of the game. So there are a few differences like that. The cut scenes have been redone.
Maybe she didn't want to be racist.
Maybe things changed. The cutscenes, they've been changed as well. So they hired a famous Japanese director to do them, and instead of being a bit, I don't know, what's the actual word to use? Bit crazy, they've just gone totally mental with these. You will see Solid Snake hitting a rocket that's been fired at him and using it to jump off and do a backflip and stuff like that. Things go absolutely nuts. So
I don't think they taught him that in stealth school.
No.
Now, obviously, with Resident Evil, obviously with Metal Gear on the original PlayStation 1, you didn't have the advantage of a lot of sort of first person, like as much as you do in the remake. So sometimes it was very difficult to do the stealth. You had to rely on the camera angles that swept in as you're going up against walls on the radar. The remake gives you a little bit more freedom, but it's more difficult as well because of the AI have got more sound, environment and general more intelligence for everything around them that goes on.
Definitely. They've improved a lot of the AI in this. So before, if you walked through a puddle, the AI could hear you. Now the AI can hear all your footsteps. They work a lot harder to capture you. As you can see right now, I'm struggling just to get out of the first section.
So I presume the AI still see footprints in the snow,
yeah.
footprints in the water,
that's
and blood and such. Yeah.
So like I say, this is a stealth game. You have to play it stealthy.
There's no running and gunning. You can run and gun, but you're only going to have more troops coming to check out what's going on, wondering why their friends are dead on the floor, riddled with bullets. The Metal Gear Solid series has always had a lot of humour. added to it. I mean, we won't be able to do anything now, but a little later on, there's obviously the cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
You can find cardboard boxes and hide in them, and hope that guards will walk past and just go, it's just a box. And I believe you can also get into certain cardboard boxes in certain trucks, and obviously because the cardboard boxes have got information on the side of them, you'll get delivered to different areas because I think you're stuck, which is a nice way to get around. Get around the levels as well.
Because this game is actually pretty short. You can probably complete it in about 10 hours on your first playthrough. Faster playthroughs in about an hour, maybe 2 or so. There is a lot of detail in this game. So you'll see, like in the actual gameplay, on the top right there, you have a mini-map with all the guards there, and they've got little cones of vision there. If you get spotted, they'll come and investigate and see what that was, what the noise was. And then you have the evasion mode where you have to evade them and get away. The guards do have short attention spans. They think that you died or something after 30 seconds. But yeah, you have to avoid them just to get through the level, and you have these codec conversations. Now these go on for quite a long time, but they fill you with so much story. Some people absolutely hate them. Personally, I love them. They just...
There's hours and hours of codec conversations. When I remember playing Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation 1, every time I entered a new area, or went into a vent, or looked at a cat, or shot a man in the face, I'd call up every single one of the contacts you have, because they all had more conversation to say, unique to that scenario, or unique to that area. And you'd constantly be calling them, not only for kind of gratification or information, but just because you knew there was stuff to listen to.
Well, even if you get stuck in the game, the idea is that you can call up characters and they will help you through the game. They won't give you the answer right away, but if you call them 2 or 3 times, they'll eventually just blurt out exactly what you need to do. You have to talk to a lot of people in this game. There are some puzzles in it as well. For example, there is one famous section where you're told to look for the back of the CD case. And with that, people would spend hours looking for this CD case in the game. You actually have to look at the back of the box. They've changed it for this version though, because everyone knows about it. There's also some other like fourth wall sort of stuff where your TV would turn off and weird stuff like that would happen. Yeah,
there's a very famous fight which you must have heard of. I hope you've heard of. But at the same time, I bet you've never heard of it, so you experience yourself. Very famous fight with a boss called Psycho Mantis, who was essentially someone who could read minds. He would be talking to you about your controller, your memory card, your console, and he was saying, right, I know all your very actions, and to actually beat the boss, what you had to do was quite ingenious but very odd at the same time.
There's actually a few different ways to beat them, but yeah, they are quite fun, and at the time that stuff had never been done before.
They're very brave as well for a game that's trying to be very serious and cinematic. I mean, you've got to remember this is the PlayStation 1 era. You were basically playing what people would consider to be games. They were very kiddie or very childish, or it was very clearly made for a family, or it's a game. Not many games like this and Final Fantasy and Resident Evil had long stories or characters or tried to be cinematic. But then the game to break the fourth wall and be a bit wacky was very different indeed.
And obviously at the time when this game came out, it was a huge deal. 98 was when this came out originally on the PlayStation 1. And everyone wanted to get it. It blew people's minds, just the way it looked, the way it played. Games hadn't really looked like this or played like this before, even if it did come out quite late in the PlayStation's life. The GameCube remake, though, is pretty similar to the PlayStation 1 version, apart from the upgrades, really. There's really not much to say about it if you've already played the original, because it's pretty similar.
But it's David Hayter and not Keith
Colonel.
Yes,
what's a Russian gunship doing here?
That's what changed, and that'll get to
these.
I have no idea.
So yeah, like I say, there is a lot of codecs and cutscenes in this, so be prepared to sit down and watch a lot of the game rather than actually play it. There are YouTube videos where people have actually cut the cutscenes out, so you just see the game, and some people have done the reverse and made an actual film using the game itself.
There's that much story.
Yeah. I don't really know what else to say about this game. It is a really good game to play. If you're playing a Metal Gear Solid game, you do need to start with the first. The later games do take all the stories from the previous games and add on to them. So if you start with Metal Gear Solid 2 or 4, you're going to have no idea what half the stuff they're saying.
No. I suppose what people praise about Metal Gear Solid and what they can be sort of a negative point about it is the massive amount of not story but kind of tiny references and factions and characters. You've got Ocelot turning up and going Snake, and then Liquid's being who he is, and you've got characters from other games and tiny little references to little things from other games and organisations that are in the games. And some of it's very bizarre. Some of it's quite realistic. It tries to sort of aim to look at controversy with certain respects, like private military companies coming bigger than actual militaries just because of money and the technology they get their hands on. But they're wonderfully cinematic. And as Mark said, there's no game. If you think of any PlayStation 1 games, and you're thinking of games essentially that like people would go, oh, it's a bit like Mario, you know, Crash Bandicoot for example. You jump up and down and jump on enemies' heads and collect coins, or you're collecting items, or you're fighting each other in a Street Fighter style game. Games didn't have this cinematic style to them as well. These long conversations, these dramatic credit sequences at the start of the game as well. And then every few seconds it will stop and say, oh my god, and there's some sort of dramatic moment with characters. Again, this is a game that is genre defining and genre changing as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is a game that you have to play. You really need to experience it. Even if you don't get on with the second or third games, because some people prefer the first one because it is more action orientated. The story is a lot easier to deal with. The first one is a must have and a must play.
And if you are going to play the Metal Gear Solid games, two things will help you: cardboard boxes and lockers.
So hope you enjoyed that episode of Retro Gaming Night. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and tune in to the next episode. Did you enjoy that video? Then hit that like button. Why not subscribe as well and get the latest videos, news and competitions? Don't forget to check out casuallyhardcore.com, where you can buy hundreds of video game shirts and geek clothing, or make your own shirts with worldwide shipping also available. Until next time, stay casually hardcore.